Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Jeromes Dream, bassist and frontman Jeff Smith, to the podcast. The new Jeromes Dream record, The Gray in Between, will be out this Friday, May 5th, on Iodine Recordings. A huge shout out to Casey from Iodine for connecting Jeff and me. Jeff talks about moving to the West Coast, the early days of screamo / emoviolence, the unfortunate ending of the band, his love of Casey and Iodine Recordings, the lyrical concept behind The Gray in Between, and more. Jeromes Dream heads out on tour at the end of the month with the Elizabeth Color Wheel. Check out the dates on the band's website and make sure you go see them live. Enjoy today's chat with Jeff Smith of Jeromes Dream.
How you doing? I'm Jeff.
I'm doing great, man. Brian, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. You're out on the West Coast. Casey said, what took you to the West Coast?
Oh, God. Well, with the long story or the short story?
Long makes for a better podcast.
Sure. Well, yeah, I was a little kid, and not to date myself as far as my age, but I used to watch the old show Chips, if you know that show. There, yeah. Strata and Larry Wilcox and other folks, and
short shorts.
Yeah. Well, I was a little kid, I was like 3-4 years old, and I was watching that show, and I was like, man, look how amazing it is out there. And I was just like, I'm gonna move to California, and so my whole life I was just like California. I was like the kid in The Wizard with what's the guy's name from the Wonder Years? I'm forgetting his name now. Shit. Anyway. Yeah. But
Ben Savage.
Fred
The
Savage.
other one? Oh, Fred Savage.
Older brother. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was always just kind of a thing. And I remember JD, when we started, our first goal was, let's get to California. And so we did. And then I had an opportunity to move here years later. So I took it, and I haven't looked back. That was 2002. I moved here.
Nice.
So I've been here for a long time. San Francisco.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm actually moving. Like, I'm in the middle. That's also part of what's. I'm like in the middle of a move, and I've lived in my apartment for 18 years, and
wow.
So yeah, there's just a lot going on. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man. And was there an adjustment period there moving to San Francisco from the East Coast?
Yeah, there was actually. There was no like real specific reason that I moved out here. Yeah. And I didn't move out here for a job or school or anything like that.
A girl.
That was part of it. But I mean, that didn't last very long. That was more of an opportunity to get out here, I think. And nothing against them, but yeah, and there was definitely an adjustment period. Like the first couple of years were really challenging.
Yeah.
I was 24 when I moved here, I think, and then I was like, well, I'm here. I guess I better do something. And JD wasn't playing anymore. I didn't really have anything to do, so I went to college, and then that helped me sort of find a way. And then but I don't know, like the interim between I guess when JD split and I met my wife was like not a great time. It was kind of a dark time for me. So, maybe about 10 years was just sort of lost.
Yeah.
But it's okay. If you've ever been here, it's beautiful. So there was always that, I go outside and, like not to go too deep into my own neuroses and darkness, but there was a period of depression, and but met my wife, and we got married and had our kid, and sort of helped me stabilize myself, I guess, and turn into a better human. So
yeah.
But yeah, 20 years or 21 years later, here I am. So
nice. Was that turn is kind of coincide with like JD getting back together?
You mean the sort of, yeah, I mean, my son was born in 2015.
So then you're a few years out, like 2018, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I became an adult when my kid was born,
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, like Eric and I had always been kind of talking on the side, and in my head I was always like, dude, let's play some more music. Like, just write a song, and he'd always be like, oh yeah, and because we'd see each other maybe twice a year and hang out, if he was in the city, or I was, he moved to LA a few years back, and now he's up here actually. Yeah. But anytime we were together, we would, we'd listen to old stuff and just reminisce, and but yeah, I guess somehow I don't know what happened, but he was like, hey, we should do a phone call with Nick, and I was just in a much better place in my head, and I was like, yeah, let's do that, but I think I was part of what was dark for me in that 10-year period was that I needed the band.
Yeah.
I needed that. I didn't really do much musically, and aside from this band, I played in another band called the Wine Up Bird for a short time with my friend Joe, but that was not very long. I think we stopped playing together in maybe 2003, and I did some like kind of weird noise stuff with some friends here and there, but it was never something that clicked. It was just sort of a, let's get together and just try to make each other deaf. And,
yeah.
And we did a couple shows here and there, but yeah, so I think that's why I was always just like, I need to do this. I need this to feel whole, and getting married and having a kid, that sort of made me feel some purpose again. And then once like you're a parent, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
Wait, how old are your kids?
8 and 6.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're right in there. So those first years. Yeah, my son's 7. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's like those first few years are just like, whoa. I'm trying to adjust, and but yeah, by the time he was about 3, I was like, okay, yeah, let's do some stuff. If you guys can come here. And so but yeah, let's
go back in time. You grew up in Connecticut?
I did. Yeah.
What portion of Connecticut, like closer to New York City or up in the
it was like west central Connecticut, a town called Waterbury.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know where are you based? DC. Okay. So yeah, Waterbury is kind of an armpit of Connecticut. It's like the Brass City is its nickname. They a lot of bullets came out of the ground in Waterbury. But it was an industrial city for a long time, and then it was just a very depressed city when all the industry left. And but it was cool to grow up there. I was always bored, but at the same time, that boredom makes you create your own fun, and I definitely got into a lot of trouble with my friends, and although I was always the good one, but I was like, well, voice of reason, maybe we shouldn't do that, but yeah, no, so it's Waterbury, Connecticut. That's where I grew up. So yeah,
that's right. What got you into music?
Oh shit. Well, my dad was into oldies, and he had these these like Time Life collection tapes, and we would drive around in his car when I was little. Like he disappeared for a while when I got a little bigger, but I was a little kid. We would just drive around in his car, and I'd be like, Dad, can we listen to your tapes? And he'd put them in, and I just loved them. Like Rock and Robin or Sea Cruise or just Great Balls of Fire, whatever. Like just the classics, right? And I was just really into that stuff, and and then I guess fast forward a couple years, and I guess I remember seeing a video for what's the song? Shit, I'm blanking. I had a concussion or last year, so I'm a little forgetful sometimes. I'm like, but actually, it was with JD. We got in a car accident. And,
oh shit!
My head hit. But fuck, what's the name of the song? Love Song by The Cure.
Okay, yeah.
I guess that was 89. Was Disintegration came out, and I remember seeing the video on MTV and was like, this is fucking incredible. I have to find out more about this. And so, and then I just started discovering more stuff. I remember like Faith No More, The Real Thing was something I got into pretty early. 9 Inch Nails had like a whole, these songs just all started speaking to me.
Yeah.
It's like in that angsty phase of middle school. And yeah, I mean, it started growing from there, and then Nirvana happened, and that was lights out, right?
Yeah.
And it just kind of grew from there. I got into some pop punk and ska, and I was just exploring and figuring out what I liked. It's funny, I was never really into like hardcore, like especially in Connecticut, like bands like Hatebreed and all that stuff, and that wasn't really what I was into. And but I know Eric and Nick were into that stuff, and but yeah, so it's kind of interesting, the melding of influences, and what sort of brought us to make what we made. And but yeah, I mean, The Cure and Faith No More and Nirvana, those were some early things, and then like Green Day and shit like that, just sort of the more like fuck you to the world. But I guess it was all kind of a fuck you to the world,
right?
That really spoke to me,
right?
So.
Right. At what point did you decide, all right, I need to play an instrument and do this?
I mean, it was I guess it was kind of percolating in there, just seeing these bands do this stuff. And I remember like I decided I wanted to play bass because I really liked the bass player from Rancid, Matt Freeman, like some of the stuff he was doing. I was like, this is cool. And I got a bass, and I like took a bass lesson, and there were a couple, maybe 3 or 4. And the guy basically taught me how to tune, and he's like, all right, start bringing me tapes and stuff if you want to learn. And I'm like, is that really how it's done? I was thinking like, I'm going to go in there and like get some theory and all this stuff. And so I just stopped going, but he sort of gave me an idea,
right,
of how I could sort of learn. And then another friend of mine was into Into Another and Quicksand, and I started learning about that stuff. And I went and saw Into Another and this band Garden Variety, and Garden Variety really sealed the deal for me. I was like, this fucking band is incredible. It was like dissonant and melodic at the same time, and a power trio, and so much energy. And I was like, I want to do that. That's really what I want to do. Like all these other things were sort of floating around and like making me think, okay, cool, I'm gonna learn how to play an instrument and do this. But Garden Variety really sealed the deal. I was like, this is the direction I want to go. And I started playing in a band with some guys, and they were like punks from Connecticut, but they were also into the Quicksand and Sick of It All and the New York stuff. And
Yes.
but Garden Variety was really, really, that was the pivotal moment where I was like, this is the real thing. I want to go this direction. So
yeah. Was there a scene happening in Waterbury, or were you having to travel to like get your fix?
No scene in Waterbury. I had to go to New Haven, and I was going to there were some 300 to 500 cap rooms around the state that I would travel to see bands like Into Another or Quicksand or Sick of It All or Green Day before they got huge. And I would go around the state, really. I mean, Connecticut's such a small place. You can be anywhere in an hour, like Danbury or New Haven or Hartford or wherever there was a club, I would just go. New Britain, I think there was a club. I can't remember. But I mean, I would just borrow my mom's car, and my friend or friends, we would, or I had another friend, he had a car. We would just switch off, and we would go wherever there were shows. It was a lot of fun, though. Just like, oh, like this band's coming through. I mean, a lot of people think of Connecticut as like flyover land for the Northeast, but if bands really wanted to hit the Northeast hard, or I guess the like DC to Boston corridor, they would spend a day in Connecticut too, because it's an hour and a half from New York City and 2 hours from Boston, or 2.5 depending on traffic, and so a lot of great bands would come through, and so I got to see them, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And like New Haven, they got the college there, so it's like,
Yep. And that's I mean, I met a lot of folks at Yale, and was exposed to some pretty cool stuff and good work ethic and good ideas, and just like different way of looking at stuff. It was actually really, really cool for me to be around that. So
how did Jerome's Dream get started?
All right. So, so there was this band called Josta 14. I'm not sure if you ever heard of them. Jamie Josta from Hatebreed. He was the original singer. And then Greg Burns, who's been in a bunch of stuff, like Red Sparrows, and also Mick Barr, who's in Cromtech and Orthrealm, and who knows what he's doing now. But all these folks were in this band called Josta 14. And then Jamie left to start Hatebreed, and this other guy, Kyle, became the singer, and they took a complete, like, they just went in a completely different direction where they started being a little bit more jammy, but still heavy. And I wasn't really into them, but this guy, Kyle, he was sort of like the godfather figure of the scene in New Haven. And so, I started hanging out down there. I don't remember how old I was, but, I started hanging out with him. Like he was just cool. And, we clicked, and he worked in this record store in, a small DIY. Well, I guess it wasn't DIY, but this small club in New Haven called the Tune In. And I went there one night to get some records, and Eric was there, and Kyle was like, "Hey, you guys should get together and make some music." And Eric had been in some hardcore bands, and this band called Brace, and this other band called Kid Suspicious, and I didn't know him at all, but I was like, "Yeah, cool. Let me get your number," And I was already playing with Nick in a different band, and Nick was playing drums in that band. So when I found out Eric was a drummer, I was like, "Oh, well, but then I talked to Nick about it. He's like, "I'll play guitar. That's cool." And I was like, "Yeah, all right. Well, let's get together." And like a week or two later, we got together and we practiced it in Nick's mom's basement. And we show up, Nick and I together. We were living together. It was my first apartment. I moved out of my mom's house, and we pull up to the house, and they already knew each other. They're like, "Oh, what's up?" Just being around New Haven, and I was new to New Haven, and so we set up and we played this song that I had written, and Eric did this cool fill, and I was like, "Fuck yes, this is great," and we knew right from the beginning that we had something, and that's just how it was. So thanks to Kyle. I always give him props for introducing us. I haven't talked to him since I moved out here, but he really made it happen by introducing us. So
that's right. Where'd the name come from?
That's always been fun for us. People, well, I guess back in the day, people would speculate, oh, is it from
Who's Jerome? Oh yeah.
So Jerome was a cat. He was my roommate's cat. My roommate Liz, and in the same house that Nick lived in, and we would just hang out there after practice. Sort of like a crash pad for a bunch of people in New Haven. And like I lived there, my friend Pete lived there, Nick and his girlfriend lived there, and our friend Liz lived there. And then people would just like sleep on our couch or whatever, like the punks from the scene. And but Liz had these two cats, Jerome and Shmi.
Yeah. And
we would just talk, we're like young kids, and we're like, dude, the band, it's so cool, and we were trying to think of a name one day, and like Jerome's off over to the side, and he like starts spazzing like a cat does, and I was like, look, Jerome's dreaming, and we were all just like, oh, that's so emo. So yeah, we just sort of shortened it a little bit into Jerome's Dream, and because we were like, what's he dreaming about, So that's where the name came from. As lame as that is, that's where it came from.
Nice.
So, yeah.
You talked about earlier just kind of the way all three of your influences kind of informed the sound, but was there anything when you started playing that like clicked right away in like these short, like really spastic songs?
Well, it's hard to remember that far back, but
sure.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, it was like Eric's always been kind of the one to do most of the writing, I was like I said earlier, Nick and I were playing in this other band, and it wasn't very good, and I was just playing bass, but I was having those angsty feelings, so I started writing them down, like pretty cliche. Like I had my notebook, and I'm like, fuck the world,
Right.
stuff. And I was like, and I asked the singer, I was like, hey, do you mind if I try to sing? And he's like, yeah, sure, that's cool. And so I did, and I remember it's funny. They were like, after my first time, I was like, so how did I do? And they're like, we can't hear you at all. Which is funny, given that I wound up not using a mic later.
Right.
But I think that was sort of a catalyst for me being like, I gotta go harder, right?
Yeah.
But early on, so Nick and I came in with like 4 songs, and they just weren't very good. They were trash, One of them was the one with that cool fill I mentioned earlier, but yeah. But Eric quickly decided, like, I'm going to write some music here, and Nick would throw stuff in here and there, and I just sort of let them do that, and I just decided to concentrate on writing lyrics, and so I don't really know, like Eric's process was pretty fucking weird, he's just a weirdo, and he makes me look at him funny sometimes, but I love him to death. He's like my brother. But you know, like I wound up getting this job with him at this restaurant in a couple towns over from New Haven, and you know, I would go to work, and him and Nick would get together, and they would switch instruments, and Eric would play guitar and Nick would play drums, and they had to do it in Nick's mom's basement. But we couldn't play loud there because the family would go crazy. And his brother, like Nick's older brother, would unleash the Rottweiler into the basement, and like it would terrorize them, you know, if they got too loud. So Nick would play with like chopsticks, and was like, you know, Eric would play clean, and then I'd come home and take a quick shower and then head over, and they'd be like, dude, look at what we wrote. And you know, it sort of evolved from there, I guess. You know, we never had like our own dedicated practice space. We were telling Sean about this the other day. Sean's now playing guitar with us. And we were telling Sean about this the other day, how like we would be at Yale, like our friends at Yale would like leave gates and doors open for us. And, you know, we'd pull up and put the hazards on and like get like in the middle of like a busy street in downtown New Haven, and like just get our equipment out onto the sidewalk and hold the gate open. And like, you know, so we never had like a place where we could really just immerse ourselves and until now, really. But and like not even for the last record were we able to do that. But yeah, so they would sort of write together, and I'd be at work, and then they would show me the songs, and then we would you know, we'd go and practice in New Haven and at Yale, and sort of let them become louder and more realized that way. But yeah, I mean, on occasion I would write a part, or you know, Nick would write a song here and there, like from Seeing Means More Than Safety, like that end bass line in It's More Like a Message to You. I remember writing that in Nick's mom's basement, and you know, it was just like, oh yes, you know, it was just so pretty. We played it for like probably a half an hour, just clean. And, you know, we were like, this is pretty great. And you know, we would have those moments a lot, and we still do. Like on the new record, I don't know, have you heard, did you get a copy?
Casey didn't send it to me. No.
Oh dude,
I know, I thought about that. I was like, I should have asked him.
Casey,
damn it.
Yeah, but like there's like a shorter interlude on there, right before the last song, that was one of those moments where we just started playing this part for like a half an hour, and just it's really pretty. And but yeah, I don't know, that was just sort of how we did it. It was those two weirdos would do stuff, and then the other weirdo would come in and make it whole. Yeah. I like to say I exclaimed.
Yeah. What led to you not using a mic, and you guys like turning your back to the audience and like kind of that like stage antics thing?
Yeah. It wasn't really an antic. It was more like, it was just it became that way. Maybe our first or second show ever, we were playing, it was like at a VFW hall in a town called Madison, Connecticut, which is maybe 15 minutes east of New Haven along the water. And I was flailing around, you know, it's big feelings again, lots of emo stuff. And, you know, you see these bands and they're just like all over the place. Right. And I'm trying to get back to the mic, and I kept hitting my teeth, you know, I'm stepping on the base of the mic stand, and it's like hitting me in the mouth. And I'm just like, fuck this. And I just kicked this thing across the room. I was just like, and I just went the rest of the show without it. And then I was like, you know what? I don't even need it. And, you know, we weren't playing with like big loud equipment yet.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's just sort of, that's how the no mic thing came to be. And playing with our backs to the audience was more of, it wasn't like trying to shut people out. It was more of that's just how we were comfortable playing, because we were playing with each other. You know, it was like we were just together, and we sort of invited people in to watch us be together and to kind of go through this catharsis whenever we would play. And so, you know, I needed to be present with them in order to get to that place that I was back then. So that's sort of where it came from. It wasn't like, let's be dicks and turn out and not use a mic and like fuck everybody. It was more of just, it was us being together, and it was just kind of the safe way to be. So
nice. At what point were you becoming aware of like bands that were your peers in sound, like Orchid or Satiate, maybe a little less, but like City of Caterpillar, like where this like screamo or emo violence scene was like up and coming?
Sure. Well, I don't think City of Caterpillar came later. I think they came right at the end. Maybe 2001. They became
that might be
something like that. But so we played the show. It was maybe our 8th show. That's the number I remember. Maybe number 8. We played the show up in New Hampshire. And to this day, I regret not walking over. Like, we were literally on the border of Maine, and I've never been to Maine in my life, even though I grew up in Connecticut. And I regret to this day, because I remember thinking, hey, I've never been to Maine. I should just like walk over there. But I was like, nah, I'll be back.
Oh man.
But the show was Ass Suck and Reversal of Man, and I want to say Frodis played.
Okay.
But anyway, Ass Suck and Reversal of Man, really, I mean, we all know Ass Suck, and most of us who are going to listen to this know Reversal of Man, but we really connected with Reversal of Man right away. We like, they were right there when we played, which was crazy to us. You know, we were like, you know, why do you want to watch us flail about? You know, like, but they watched us, and then we watched them, and we were just like, fucking like, holy shit. You know, they were insane. Like Matt Copeland, like running back and forth across the room, and like microphone duct tape to his hand. I don't know if he was doing that yet, but it was just absolutely insane. And so we became friends, and you know, we started noticing these other bands, and you know, there was like AOL emo chat and AOL hardcore chat, and Eric and Nick were pretty prominent in those chat rooms. And so, you know, making friends with people were just like sending mixtapes around, and you know, we would send demos to anybody that wanted one. You know, we would just be like, hey, send us your address and we'll send you a tape. And those tapes come up on eBay here and there or wherever. And but yeah, so that was like the first time I was like, oh, there's something like this out there too, you know, because nothing like that was happening in Connecticut. And, so, you know, and we're just sort of meeting people from other areas online, and so I remember when we met Orchid at this place called Studio 159 in Providence, Rhode Island, and you know, I'd heard of them. I'd seen their record, their 7-inch around, but I hadn't heard them. But I was like, all right, well, I want to watch this band, see what they're all about. And they were really good. And they came over to us after we played, and they were like, hey, that was really good, you know? And so we became friends with them. So it was sort of having friends regionally that would put on shows, and you know, all DIY stuff. And so, but I guess Reversal of Man and Ass Suck were the first bands that I realized, like, oh shit, there's other stuff out there that's, you know, kind of in our ballpark. And so, and you know, the sound started to evolve from that, I guess, you know, just having other people doing it. But Yeah, and Page 99 came a little bit later. They were sort of, I think we met them shortly after we met Orchid, and but there wasn't really much of a scene, I guess, sort of just these little pockets here and there.
Yeah.
It wasn't the way it is now. Like the internet hadn't really developed into what it is now. And, there was no file sharing yet. You had to get actual records from distros at shows, which was cool. You'd like thumb through the records, the box or whatever. Like that guy, Kyle, he worked at the record store in the tune-in. And, I remember getting Portraits of Past there and being like, this is fucking incredible. What is this? And at the same time, other stuff was happening, I guess, in that Connecticut world. Like, I remember going to see like Promise Ring or Braid or other bands that were not in our wheelhouse, but still in that, I guess, that indie emo world. And, so we were probably drawing some influences from that too. Just sort of like the melodic part of JD was pulling from that stuff. So,
So then what led to you guys disbanding?
Well, Eric had a short temper. But I don't know. I mean, we played for 4 years, and then Eric's dad was in his ear about going to college, and that was part of it. And then I wasn't even thinking about college at that point. I was just like, I just want to do this. That's all I want to do. And I'm sure that it was the same for Nick. But and then just sort of being tired of like the grossness of the scene, just like gossip and scene politics, and like sort of an early indicator of the sort of cancel culture that's out there, like, oh, this and this and this, and like if you're not in with certain people, then you're on the outside looking in, and we always sort of felt like outsiders, and we weren't trying to be with everybody or be cool or any of that stuff, and we were just trying to make music and sort of have an outlet for how we were feeling, but be artistic about it. And so I think Eric just kind of got fed up, and I remember we were doing a weekend, and we were playing in New Jersey, and Eric stood up and said, "This is our second to last show." during the set, and Nick and I are just like, what? Like looking at each other, like the rug ripped out from under us,
Oh man.
And the next night was our last show in Boston at the Middle East, and with my friend Joe, who I mentioned earlier. I did the Wind Up Bird, his other band, and World Inferno Friendship Society, and I think there was like another local opener, but yeah, I mean, that was really it. There was no conversation, there was no anything. It was just sort of bye. And Eric moved to New York, and I moved to California, and Nick stayed in Connecticut, and it was sad. Like I said, I went through a very dark period, and I mean, I was already in that darkness, but I lost whatever lifeline I had, and, and I didn't talk to Eric for a while, and then I guess he called me or texted me and was like, "Hey, I'm sorry." That's maybe 2008 or 9 or something, and I was like, "It's cool." I've sort of adapted, and but that's how it happened, and but yeah, I mean, it still kind of bums me out to think about this day. So.
Was there a moment at any point between the band breaking up and then the reunion where you caught wind of this like cult status of JD and like that the scene, it was like people were like, oh, like itching for more of that?
No.
No.
No. Here and there I might like Google it, but
yeah.
I didn't like ever do a deep dive.
Sure.
And I'd see like records on eBay going for a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I never like bands like Touche Amore and Loma Prieta. I didn't even know about them. I had no idea. Like when JD stopped, I shut the door. And it's funny actually, Loma Prieta. I've got a side story about that, but I'll go to that in a minute. But yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know that screamo moved on or evolved or did anything, or screamo, whatever you call it these days. But, I'm just I had no idea. I think Eric he's like, hey, there are a lot of people out there that love our band. And I'm like, really? Like, okay, well, cool. I love our band. So, but Touche Amore, or not Touche Amore, sorry. Loma Prieta. So after I moved out here, I'd been here for a couple of years, and I started dating this girl who went to Berkeley, and she we started hanging out, and I met a bunch of her friends, and I meet this guy, and he found out I was in JD, and he was like, "You were in Jeromes Dream?" I'm like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Dude, I'm trying to start a band," and blah blah blah, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I didn't really think anything of it because you hear that stuff all the time, and it wound up being Val, the drummer for Loma Prieta, and he told me the name, so I remembered, and because it's a distinct name, and that girl and I, we stopped dating. We dated maybe like a year and a half or something, and beyond that, I didn't even know. Like Sean, like I never knew that Loma Prieta became what it became. I just remember him saying that. I never like followed it or anything like that. And it's funny, but like Sean tooling around in San Francisco at the same time as me, I was like, why didn't we hang out? I mean, I didn't meet him until we asked them to tour in 2018, and it's funny because he thought we were like not for real. We thought it was like somebody trying to play a joke on him, and so I had no idea that this stuff was going, and I'm glad it did. I'm glad it did. So.
Yeah. How'd you guys get connected with Casey to do the Presents pressing?
So Casey back in the day did a compilation called Ghosts in the Gears, where he just got all these bands, and I don't know how we wound up on the comp. I guess he must have talked to Eric, but he did that, and then I don't even know what year that came out, but I think it was Every Day at 306 from the Amalgamation split that wound up on there. And but yeah, fast forward to a few years ago, and he reached out to us and said, "Hey, I'm doing my label again. Are you interested in doing a repress of Presents?" And we were like, "Yeah, sure." And it wound up being 20 years, I guess, when we talked about it, and it's hard to think that was 2 years ago, but yeah, we got on the phone with Casey and had a really great conversation, and realized that he was a true punk, and he wanted to do it, and we were like, let's do it. And I mean, we talk to Casey all the time, not even like not even band stuff, but we'll just get on the phone and just chat. And his son's had some health problems in the last few years, and it's been pretty hard on him. And I go through that with him. You know, you're a parent too, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much you've talked to him about it, but
Yeah.
yeah. So it's, you know, I've definitely shed some tears, just you know, trying to, you know, just hold it together and be positive and supportive, and you know, but I think about Casey and his son and his wife and their family every day. You know, it's one of the first things I think about. So, so I'm glad that we're doing this stuff together, because he's just, you know, it's not like all these terms or, you know, contractual obligations. It's like friends, and that's really important to us. So, nothing against other labels, and you know, we have a lot of respect for a lot of other labels, and but Casey's like family, so we want to excuse me, sorry, I'm just thinking about a river got me a little choked up, but you know, it's important to keep your family intact, and so
yeah. He's doing something really cool this time around with all the like older bands and represses, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Quicksand, fuck.
I know, right?
I mean, he told us, he's like, guess what? And you know, I mean, I've mentioned Quicksand many times in this conversation, and you know, I mean, that was a huge like almost on the level of Garden Variety for me, like, because it was different. You know, it wasn't the like beatdown chugga kind of stuff. It's like it had melody and musicality, and not that the other stuff doesn't, but you know, it was more just like interesting. And so when Casey told us he was doing that, I was like, fuck, this is great. I mean, you know, I went back and listened to Slip, and I was like, oh, so good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, the new record is called The Gray In Between, out in May. Where'd the title come from?
Yeah. Well, you know, I feel like a lot of the narrative of today, the dialogue is so black and white. Everyone's like, it's either this way or that way. You know, the polarity of the world that we live in, and it's terrible. You know, I mean, I just feel like just a ping pong ball being thrown back and forth between it, you know, and people forget that there's all this gray in between, you know, and you know, like everybody in our day to day, it's just gray, and almost nothing is actually black and white, except the you know, people up on the soapbox yelling, and you know, I just wanted to remind people. It's a lyric from the first single, "Stretched Invisible" from London, which is about keeping art going in the face of just terrible life stuff. You know, I started out where I was thinking about. It was I wrote the lyric shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine, and I was just trying to imagine what it was like for artists there, and like, you know, because I mentioned earlier, you know, this darkness that I went through, obviously not equating that to what folks are going through in Ukraine at all, but just the fact that I had it ripped away from me, and you know, now these people are trying to prevent their families and themselves from being killed by bombs, you know, but I'm sure there are people out there that are they just keep painting, or they keep making music, or they keep making whatever kind of art they're making. And I just, you know, I just tried to imagine what that was like. And, you know, there's this gray, gray that's in between. And, you know, I just imagine like all these colors running together and, you know, just sort of becoming a mess and turning into just this gray slop in the middle of all of the smoke of the bombs. And, you know, that's just what I was seeing. So that lyric came from that. And, you know, it just sort of captured the feeling of what my lyrics on the whole record were about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Different kind of angst.
different kind of angst,
but still very fucked world.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm in my 40s now, so I've just got a different perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the second record you guys have done since reuniting. Was the writing process and creative process different on this one than the last one?
Yes.
Yep.
Completely. For the better. Yes. I mentioned earlier, we never really had a space that we could be just immerse completely in, right? You know, we're always bouncing around from place to place. And when we wrote LP, you know, I lived in San Francisco, Nick lived in Connecticut, and Eric lived in LA. And we got together a few times, you know, like, and mostly it was them coming here because of my son. And, you know, but we were never able to just like have 1 or 2 or 3 practices a week where we could just let things sort of simmer. You know, it was like we were we were on a time crunch, you know, like, okay, we're here for this many days, let's write as much as we can. And but fast forward to the Grand Between, and you know, Eric moved to San Francisco sometime, I want to say in the summer of 2020. And Sean, actually Eric moved into Sean's apartment. So Sean moved out of his apartment, Eric moved into it, and it was sort of serendipitous, I guess. But you know, and we already had enlisted Sean because we were supposed to go, oddly enough, to Russia and Eastern Europe in April of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So Sean was gonna play second guitar with us, and then we all know what happened in March of 2020.
Yeah.
So needless to say, we didn't go on that tour. We were going to play Roadburn. Still bummed that we didn't get to play such a great fest. And like 10-year-old me is bummed that I didn't get to go to Russia. And going back to my conversation before, I want to make sure that any folks from Russia that hear this aren't like alienated by what I was talking about. It's more about the government of Russia, what they did. So I want to make that clear. But anyway, but yeah, so Sean's here. He lives about an hour outside of San Francisco, and Eric and I are in the city, and Sean has a practice space in Oakland. So, you know, we sat for a long time until we all got vaccinated. But then once we were vaccinated, you know, we were talking about, like, oh man, we want to get together. We want to get, you know, let's, like, we're dying, you know?
Yeah.
So we all got vaccinated, and then, we got in the room together and we started writing, and, you know, we wrote a song, that oddly enough will come out after this record, does. It's going to come out later this summer, on Jeremy Baum's, label.
Nice.
It's going to be on a comp with all the current bands of today. And, anyway, we wrote that song and we realized, shit, we have something here, you know? And, so we just let it keep going, and, we went and recorded it, and we demoed another song, which is actually on the Grand Between. I'm forgetting the name of it, but, it's the second to last song. So there's like an interlude in between this song and then the last song. But anyway,
Future Memory.
Future Memory. Yes, that's the one. And to talk about memory problems. Damn concussion, man. Don't get one. But anyway, we demoed that one, and so we went in with our buddy Jack Shirley and recorded the song for Jeremy's comp, Reminders to Parallel, and then this other, and the Future of Memory, and we just did a quick pass of that because we had just written it like a week or two before, and we're like, let's just play it and have it, and but then we just we kept going and writing, but we were able to get together regularly. We had like once or twice a week where we had something to look forward to, and we just and it just became what it became. We were like, well, we've got like 6 songs. Let's put a date on it and get back in with Jack, and and then we set it out like 6 months maybe to give ourselves time to write more, and our goal was to write like 20 songs or something. We wound up with I want to say 13. There are a couple that aren't on the record. They'll find their way out eventually. Yeah. But yeah, so it was a really fun, relaxing process for the most part. A couple times we were banging our heads against the wall trying to make things work, but that's just the creative process. But as far as like just the ease of everything, it was great. And Sean's been great to work with, and he just gets it. It was instinctual for him, and he brings his own kind of flavor to it. And it was a lot of fun to write, and I'm already nagging them to start writing the new record. They're like, well, let's tour for this one first. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, but but we already have some ideas
nice
in there. So so I can't wait to do that.
Nice. That was my next question. You guys are going to hit the road in support of this album?
Yeah. So we're going out in late May. I think we leave, or our first show is on May 20th. Well, we're going to play Screamo Beach Fest, or ZBR Fest, I believe May 6th. And then we're going to do a couple of other things while we're in Chicago. And then, then we hit the road proper May 20th. We do full US, or mostly full US. I think some people are mad we're not going to be in their city. We're bummed about that. It's only because of time constraints. I mean, my wife is already like, "Are you going that fucking long? What's wrong with you?" Because she's got to work and and get our son to school and summer camp and all. There's a lot. And for me to disappear for 25 days is just like, yep, sorry, bye. But yeah, then we get home, and then the following weekend we go to Austin for Oblivion Access, and then later this summer, we haven't announced it yet, but we're going to go to Europe.
Nice.
And
awesome.
And then all the West Coast people out there, don't worry, we'll get there. It's just about the scheduling and everybody being, and Sean's still in Loma, so he has to do some Loma touring, and but we're going pretty hard. Lots of plans for this year and next.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.